Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Game Day Squad preview show ahead of round 18. And Tom didn't have his thing on mute, so you could hear him as the countdown clock was going on. But I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And as reference, my co-host is here once again, is Tom from Game Day Squad. Tom, mate, how are you? Looking forward to a very big night of State of Origin, Game 3.
Yes, I am. Big night. Of course, we do the Queensland versus New South Wales competition on Game Day Squad. So if it does tickle your fancy, try to get a squad together. We've got some awesome prizes and some packs up for grabs there. But you know what we're here for, Bales. We're here to talk about Aussie rules. We're going to be having a look at round 18. But before we get into that, I want to know how round 17 went for you. How did everything unfold?
Well, it's glad that we're not talking about rugby league because I talking to your camera. I left Ryan Pappenhausen in my multiple squads and with salary on top of him, and he didn't play, and I missed it. So I'm really annoyed at that. So thankfully, Aussie rules is my number one sport because I'd be in a bit of trouble if it was. So starter came third for the week, which was nice. Played a few pods like Colby McKercher, which I was thinking about playing over Bailey Dale last week, which would have been a really good decision, but unfortunately didn't do that. Contender had another solid week, coming 16th for the round, and obviously you got me there, so we'll obviously get your recap shortly. And then Classic ended up finishing 36th for the round, which I thought was surprising because I had pretty much the exact same squad in Contender and Classic, but ended up a little bit sort of behind there. So 15th in Classic still. What are we? 220 points away from a prize card. So still in the hunt there, but obviously the more weeks that pass and don't catch that up, the harder it gets. Then in Contender, currently fourth. So I'm less than 100 points away from first, which is really, really nice. So the top four are pretty close there. And then in Starter, inside the top 20 to 19th, but that's the one that I probably don't take as seriously just because of some of the rarities there. So looking not too bad, mate. What about yourself? How are you looking in your squads?
Yeah, mate. I've been really positive the past couple of rounds, and it's because I'm just rolling. I am rolling. I'm finally starting to make some of the good decisions. And fortunately, I feel like earlier in the year, some of the big calls I made really hurt me because I either had salary cap on them or etc. Now I'm sort of just doing bit of damage control. Every time there is sort of a worse performance, it's not impacting me the same as it was earlier. So I came 12th this round in Classic with 2,912 points. In other rounds, that's enough to win. So I felt a little hard done by for sure. So a bit spewing. But the most important thing for me with Classic being my main comp, I just entered the top 20 for the seasonal. And I started this year around the 40 mark, 50 mark even at times. But I am slowly and surely catching up. And I know you're saying you need to stay on top of things, mate. You need to stay in front of me. I'm coming for you, Bales. I'm coming for you. But on the flip side, with Contender, I came 11th. So I came 12th in Classic. I came 11th in Contender. Contender, I do play a little differently, but in terms of salary cap, I sort of kept it pretty the same. Wanganeen Miller was my superstar for the round. I had a gold in both competitions. So he was the top scoring player, and I had a gold for him in both. So I think that led to a pretty good round just in general. And then the seasonal for Contender, I'm sitting in second place, but Such Is 5 is looking pretty dominant there at the moment. So that's my round and sort of seasonal update.
Yeah,
there we have it.
Well, we're in the top four. We're in the top four in Contender, and it's pretty close up there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. It would be pretty good if it was a Fanatics 1 and 2 finish top two. That'd be pretty nice there. But Classic
Absolutely.
Cup, we both got through in Classic Cup, which is nice. And shout out to Max Hansen, who was the coach that took down Monco's Minions, who was essentially the number one coach this year across a lot of the competitions. And he's matched up against me this week because he says here, can't believe that I've matched up against Bales in the Classic Cup. But then again, I think Bales might have verbally manifested it with how often he said he didn't want to face me. What did he say? Already spent all my luck getting past Monco, but made the best squad win, and I'll see you out in the battlefield, Bales. I can't listen live, unfortunately, but I'll listen back eagerly later. Well, Max, well, guess what? sort of the first time it's happening this season, I won't be revealing my squad. No, I'm joking. No, we'll reveal the squad as we always do. So you probably have the upper hand in that regard. But yeah, obviously be looking forward to who we come up. Do you know who you're up against, Tom, this week?
Do you know who I versed last round, mate?
Who did you verse last week?
I versed Hastings Hornets, and I know that Max was very stoked about beating Munko's Minions because at the time he was the number 1 ranked coach in Classic, but the Hastings Hornets had actually overtaken Munko's Minions from that point to now, and I got matched up with the best Classic coach over the season.
What, this week?
Last week, and beat him. So not only is Munko's Minions out, we now have Hastings Hornets out of the competition. So I did what I think is the impossible, and I beat, the best. He's been, honestly, unfortunately for him, if we were to compete the other, 17 times or however many rounds it's been, he would have beat me 90% of them. So that just happens in fantasy. Sometimes it's your rounds, other times it's not. And fortunately for me, getting that 12th place was enough to get over the top of the best Classic coach. So, Max, we did it, brother. We did it together. But I'm sure Arrogant Frogs and Peanut Butters, I know he's definitely still in. So there's a long way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to seeing how the Classic Cup shakes out over the final few rounds before it comes to its epic conclusion. But as we always do, we'll go through the games. We've got 9 games to get through, so we'll go through those. Obviously, We're doing it a little bit earlier this evening because of the state of origin. Obviously, Tom's got to jump on a show in about 50 minutes' time, so we will go through the games, but we don't have the squads, obviously, because we're a little bit earlier. So, and that's meaning for Thursday night. So we'll start off with Carlton and Brisbane at Marvel Stadium, Thursday night footy. Who are you keen on or not so keen on from this game, Tom?
Yeah, look, I'm going to go not so keen on. I'm going to start negative. I don't like doing that. But is it fair to say just any Carlton player? I'm not very keen on anyone from the squad at the moment. I've been burned by Chera. I've been burned by Hewitt. And now just look at the round, and even like TDK, like at sometimes earlier this year, he was one of those rucks that we were getting in. But as this season's gone on, he's just in a really bad stretch of performance. So I'm not playing TDK, and I actually don't have any Carlton players in. I think against the Lions, it's already been a pretty tough year for them. But at Marvel, I can't see it being any better, unfortunately. So fading any of the midfielders for this game. I think the Lions midfield will just come out on top and be too good for the likes of Chera and Hewitt.
Yep, agreed. As I see movement behind you.
My Felix has actually decided to join us for the first time.
It's blurry because obviously you've got the background blurry there, so but it's quite funny.
See if we can bring him in. So hello, everyone. Felix
makes an appearance. Oh, I love it.
He's excited, mate. He's just keen.
Who am I keen on, not so keen on? I don't actually have too many players from this game in many of my squads. I guess that the one I'll say that I'm keen on is Dane Zorko. I've got him in the squad. A little bit quiet last week, scoring just the 99 GameDay Squad points. But if we're saying that that's quiet, it's pretty good for his standards. In the 2 games before that went 153, 136, then a 107, 114, 157, 130, 168, 122, 153, and then scored a 98 in round 6. So that was his first sub-ton since round 6, averaging 130.1 GameDay Squad points. So I just think Carlton's a bit of a trickier matchup, but you can't leave him out with the ceiling, right? I think you've got to keep him in there. This is probably the way you don't put the salary on him, but you put him in there anyway. And I'm keen on someone that you've actually got in your squad. I don't currently have him in there, so I didn't want to talk about him because I thought you'd talk about him when we get to your squad later on. Moving over to the next game. Actually, no, hang on. Before we do, Corey Blackledger saying here as well, my pod of the week is Mitch Georgiades. I don't mind that. I actually looked at him for a little bit against the Eagles. I don't mind that. So it's a good play there, Corey. C said Ruck's the hardest this week for sure to pick. And Tom, I think, I don't know if you found that as well. I've found that pretty tough this week for the Rucks. Obviously, we'll go through our Rucks later on. But
Lions versus Carlton, that's TDK. You got the Suns versus the Pies, that's Cameron there, another great ruck that's got a really tough matchup. Your boys versus Bulldogs, that's English. Got a really tough matchup. then Cherry and Big Maxi are going head to head. So who are you going to take in that? And then you've got the Saints and Grundy going head to head. So Adam Marshall and Grundy, who are you going to take in that? So it is really interesting. This week, I think that's where people will make or break their squad is what rucks are going to roll out and who's going to perform well.
Yep, agreed. Campbell Baldwin as well saying, "Hey, Bales, okay to get a code for a team review." Campbell, I'm not sure if you're part of the Patreon, you do get a team review, and I send codes there, but the codes only go to the Patreon members, unfortunately. So if you aren't a Patreon member already and would like to become Patreon, and anyone else watching that hasn't become Patreon and would like to, you can sign up patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Link is in the description if you sign up there. So I think it's like normally team reviews like $15 on Ask Me on Q, but if you go to Patreon, it's $10 a month, so you get 4 reviews essentially for $60. So you save like heap money if you want to just become Patreon for the last month or two. So feel free if you'd like to do that. But as I know that for a fact, it isn't for everyone, and that is okay. That is okay, and we appreciate you tuning in regardless. And Will was saying, "Well done, Tom." As well on your week, which is nice. Moving over to the Friday night game, Gold Coast and Collingwood up at People First Stadium. Good game, this one. Good game of footy. Probably Gold Coast, almost one of their biggest games they've had in their franchise history, or club history, I should say, not franchise history. But who are you keen on? Who are you keen on or not so keen on from this one?
I'm going to go keen on... I'm going to go with big Nick Dacos. Now, last round, Bales, we infamously came to this show, and at the time, we didn't have the team news about whether Cottrell would be in or out in order to tag. We did get that news later on, and I ended up deciding on playing Nick Dacos, and he rewarded me with 155 fantasy points. The difference between Dacos and our other premium midfield options is that if you just look at some of his worser games, they're just not that bad. Like, he just continues to churn out points. And what I think is a pretty plus matchup for him with the Suns, I think he's going to go really well again this round and he's going to explode. So not to take the vanilla Dacos because, of course, we know how great he is, but this is a really plus matchup and I'd be getting some salary cap on him as well if possible because he's going to explode again.
Yeah, agreed. Like even the game where he got tagged by Ed Langdon like that, within an inch of his life, he still scored 99 game day squad points. So just showing any matchup, he can get it done. So, yep, really keen on in my squad this week. Player I'm not so keen on from this one. He's had a great year. Darcy Cameron is the one that I'm not as keen on. Here he's up against Jared Witts. Obviously, Jared Witts is the toughest ruck to score against, and obviously we don't love that matchup there. And with some other good rucks, I know there's a lot of tough matchups for us because they're either playing each other or they've got tough matchups. But I just think he's probably down the list a little bit this week, just with the tougher matchups. So for me, not looking at playing him in my squad this week. Moving over to Saturday, this is the really Friday night, and then Saturday is going to be a big couple of days in terms of how it's going to shape up, top 4, top 8, how it's looking. If you lose that game, you might be left behind. And when we start off with a big game, Bulldogs and Adelaide at Marvel Stadium. I'm glad that this game has been moved from Ballarat to Marvel Stadium. This is a game that deserves to be at Marvel Stadium. Who are you keen on or not so keen on from this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go not so keen on Bales, and you're not going to like the player that I'm about to pick. Jordan Dawson.
No.
I actually think it's time to fade Jordan Dawson. If I just have a look at his past couple of rounds, like he started this season unbelievable, on fire, was easily the top midfielder in the competition. But I guess since then, if I give you a sample size of, let's say, 5 games here, 110, 123, 115, 126, 104. It just doesn't scream that massive upside that we saw earlier in the year where we could see pretty consistent performances of about 130, 140. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you are going to start Dawson, I'd probably start lowering the amount of salary cap you're putting on him. He's still going to be a good play and he's still uber consistent. So don't get that wrong or twisted. But if you're looking at upside at the moment, I just don't see it there for him. I just think he's regressed a little bit from the start of the year. And we're not going to see those real big ceiling scores like the likes of Dacos that we just touched on in the game prior. So I'm sorry, Bales. Big boo energy, I know. I was on that train for a very long time, but I've hopped off for the first time this year.
How dare you? No, no, it is fine. I've actually still currently got him in my squad because I'm looking at his game from against the Dogs last year. Scored, what's that? 142 game day squad points, 27 touches, 6 marks, 9 tackles, and a goal. I don't think anyone's going to tag him. So I still don't mind him this week, but I agree. I think there are better options this week. It just depends on whether you can still fit him in or not. And I've found a place for him. Just an interesting stat when I just looked at the last five, the grounds that they've played at. 2020, they played at People First Stadium, obviously, with COVID. Then Mars, Adelaide Oval. We haven't played the Dogs at Marvel Stadium. I can't remember last time the Crows played the Dogs at Marvel Stadium. So that's quite interesting there when I was looking at that stat.
That is interesting, actually.
The player that I'm going to go not so keen on, and I'm going to go to your boy. So I'm returning serve, mate. I'm returning serve. And you love Tim English, but I'm not playing him this week. Not against Riley O'Brien. Tough matchup. It's funny though, right? We say we're not going to play them, but we've got to pick 2 rucks this week, and like. He's almost number 3 in the queue behind probably got him number 3 or 4 in the queue if I was to do some rankings this week. I've got a couple ahead of him. So I'm just going to say I'm not touching him this week just with the Riley O'Brien matchup, but that is not to say that Tim English is not having an amazing year. We're talking about Gawn and Grundy and Cherry and guys like that. They're in the All-Australian conversation. What about Tim English? Like, he's had an amazing year playing as that ruck, and I dare say he's probably kicked the most goals out of all of them as well. So I think there's probably got to be a conversation behind there for All Australian, which I know that would make you pretty happy. So, but yes, there you go. Moving over to the next game, which is another big game here, GWS and Geelong at NG Stadium, twilight on Saturday. Who are you keen on or not so keen on?
Yep, I'm going to go keen on. And I'm going to talk about the dynamic pairing of Lockie Ash and Lockie Whitfield. Now, this is presuming Whitfield will be back, but all signs at the moment are pointing towards his return.
250th as well, 250th this week.
Yeah, so he's had a pretty good week on the track. He had that big head knock that we saw just a couple of weeks ago, but it seems like he'll be back to his best. Geelong's a pretty good matchup for defenders, and especially defenders that push higher up the ground. I'm actually pretty confident starting both of Ash and Whitfield in this one. There was some concerns earlier this year with Lockie Whitfield sort of being a little bit higher up the ground, but we saw him come back to sort of that halfback role. And in that 3-game sample size he did that, it was 135, 100, and 137. And in those same games, he was still scoring really well with Lockie Ash. So it's not a case of either one will play good or the other. There's a lot of scenarios this year and examples we have of them both thriving within the same game, playing a very similar role because they like to use each other with moving the ball down the field, just with kick-ins, etc. So they're looking for each other. I think they're both going to score really well, and I've actually got both in this round into my defense. So the big giants or the giant defenders, get him in.
Yep, I agree with that one. The player I'm going to go a third game in a row, not so keen on, just because I'm going to talk about a few of these players when we get to our squads. Finn Callaghan is someone I'm going to say not so keen on. So he's been killing it lately. He's been so good. I'm just trying to find up. Surely I've got a Callaghan card in my squad or in my club somewhere. Here we go. Yeah, I've got one bronze. There you go. So, but there you go. So his last few games have been pretty strong. So his last, he hasn't gone below a ton since round 5. And I feel like we haven't talked about him much on the show because it's just, I don't know, he got injured. We sort of weren't looking at really starting him, but his form since his form before injury and then post injury has been really strong. So since round 6, when he went under ton in round 5, has gone 120, 116, 138, 113, 114, 108. Then last couple 129 and a season high 146 against West Coast over there at Optus Stadium. Performing really well, but performing really well also comes with opposition attention. And he comes up against Geelong this week, and Geelong have got 3 players that can do a job on someone. They've got Tom Atkins, they've got Ocean Mullen, and the guy that I think will go to Finn Callaghan this week, Mark O'Connor, because just with the size, they match up quite well. I think he'll get the Mark O'Connor tag, which I think means you can probably start Tom Green as well. I think Tom Green, if he's not the one getting tagged, he's going to have to do a little bit more heavy lifting in there. And yeah, I just think Finn Callan's the number one target at GWS now. So yeah, that is why I wouldn't be starting Finn Callan. So a few people might be keen because of the score last week, but just probably hold off. Look for a plus matchup. This isn't the one to be starting him in, unfortunately. Let's move to Saturday night, and we'll start with the two games. So Richmond and Essendon at the MCG. I know we're going to be talking about pretty much two players here who we're keen on. So why don't you kick it off with one and I'll take the other.
Yeah, well, I'll use the midfielder. It's Zachy Merritt. And unfortunately, Jai Caldwell is pretty much, he's been ruled out, right? He's done.
Yeah, pretty much for most of the season, if not the whole season, unfortunately.
If not the entire season. That could be end of year for him. And for someone who was really hitting his stride and was just playing some phenomenal footy, you don't like to see it. But the game of footy and fantasy is that when one person's out, someone needs to step up. And the most likely candidate to sort of take that pig role on and to take all the fantasy points is Zach Merritt. And last round, he had 170 fantasy points in the midfield. We spoke about his pretty poor form that he had prior to that, and that just Caldwell was outscoring him, outperforming him, and just his role was just a lot nicer. Unfortunately, with him out, that's flipped, and I think Merritt can go back to his natural position, play his natural game, and those big ton scores that we saw earlier in the year from him, I think we can start expecting that a little more. So Zachy Merritt as the main midfielder for the Bombers. He's back in. My confidence is back with him. And, yeah, I'm going to be starting him in the midfield.
Yeah. Just since round 10, listen to some of these scores from Zach Merritt. 64, 170, which, funny enough, that was the last time he played Richmond. So there you go. 112, 88, 115, 65, 170. Literally roller coaster. Up, down, up, down. I think this is a week we're going to be playing him. Just a flag, though, moving forward. A few tags coming up. Giants next week. That could be a Bedford. Then they've go Dogs, which they don't typically run tags, but then they go like Sydney, and there'll be a St Kilda, I believe, in there potentially as well. So there's a few tags coming up to end the year for Zach Merritt, but at least for this week, certainly all chips are in on Zach Merritt, along with his teammate. Obviously, you said that you take the forward, so I'll take the defender. That being Nick Martin. Poor score last week, only scored 88, and his last three have actually been a little bit disappointing. 112, 99, 88. Which is not what we've been expecting from Nick Martin. Last time he did play against Richmond, he scored 199 GameDay Squad points. So he went through that stretch. He went through that stretch from round nine to round 13, where these were his scores. He went 166, 117, 199, 137, 127. Like, it's just an incredible stretch. And obviously against Richmond, great matchup. I think he responds. I think last week was just a bit of a quiet game for him. And I think he'll get it going once again. So Nick Martin, I think he is a must this week. Moving over to Freo and Hawthorn at Optus Stadium, another big game with finals ramifications for sure. Who are you keen on or not so keen on from this one?
Yeah, let's go keen on. I'm pretty keen on Luke Jackson. Even with Darcy being back, you talked about last week perfectly the upside that he has, because he's still playing in the middle and he'll still chop out at times, and he's just going to be in the guts. He's going to push forward, and he's been pretty dangerous doing so. He hasn't kicked under 2 goals in a game since round 12. So he's on a streak there of kicking 2 or more in games. He just shows how dynamic he is. He gets his hands on the footy. He just does a little bit of everything. And when forwards can be pretty hard to pick at times, I just think the upside on the floor of someone like Luke Jackson is really nice, and a really nice sense of security to have. I am also pretty big on another player in this game, so I did like some of the matchups here, but Luke Jackson's probably the one that I think is the safest, and I'm like, got to get him into the forward line. So that'll be my must start from this one, Bales. What about yourself?
I don't. Again, he's the only one I've got from this game here, so I'm going to go keen on, because I've got him in another squad of mine, not the classic one, but I believe I've got him in starter. That's Jordan Clark.
Yes, Hawthorn's my other player.
Hawthorn's not a great matchup. Hawthorn are still fairly difficult, but we know Jordan Clark's been getting it done when he hasn't got attention. So last week got the Braden Campbell tag, and Braden Campbell kept him insanely quiet. 56 points for Jordan Clark is obviously clearly a season low. And this is from a guy that had only gone below 84 once. So before that game, which was a 72 in round 8. So it'd been really consistent getting it done. And even some of like the scores we've seen from this year, like a 113, a 118, a 162, 146, 119, 160, 148. Like, and funny enough, those last four scores I mentioned were in his 4 games previously before the game got taken the weekend. So he's in really good form. Just got clamped by Braden Campbell. I don't really know who will do the job on Jordan Clark this week, if anyone. Obviously, they tried to tag Nasai last week. Didn't work. Obviously, we'll chat about him, I'm sure, very shortly. But Jordan Clark, I think... Yeah, exactly. Over at Optus, I think Jordan Clark will put up a solid score. So I've got a few defenders ahead of him this week. But if you are keen on starting him, then I think you can definitely go and start him. So, don't mind him. Moving to the final few games here on the Sunday. So we'll start off with Melbourne and North Melbourne. Who are you keen on or not so keen on?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go the Demons, and I'm going to go with Keziah Pickett, the forward, the gun.
What a gun.
How good he is. He's playing in the midfield. He's playing forward. He's super dangerous in front of goals. And he's just real safe, good option. And it's a really great matchup against North Melbourne as well. So not only is he a great player over the season, we can actually expect a little more than what we see from his average coming into this one. So the stars are aligning for a big Cozzy Pickett game. So absolutely get him in to your best 7 forwards because, I don't think he's going to disappoint.
Yep, agreed. Yep, he is in my squad this week as well. I'm going to go. I'll go not so keen on again here, and I'm going to continue the theme of the rucks, and I'm not keen on either of Tristan Cherry or Max Gawn this week. They're both extremely hard rucks to score against, and I think they're just going to nullify each other. Right? We saw earlier in the year when they did play against each other at Marvel Stadium, they both just had meh sort of scores, right? So in that game, Tristan Cherry had a score, I believe that will be is 97 GameDay Squad points, could be slightly higher with the free kicks. And then Max Gawn was a little bit worse than that. Well, actually, it was his worst game for the season. He only had the 68 GameDay Squad points. So that was his worst game for the year. I just think that they both will nullify each other. They'll both probably score anywhere from probably 75 to maybe 115 GameDay Squad points, but I think they're going to nullify each other and not really going to get much. I could just see them going for marks, spoiling each other, not really getting much. They might get a few touches around the ground in terms of around stoppage and that, but I think that there's probably a couple other guys I'd probably rather start this week, along with the Fat Tris Chair with the head knot last week as well. So probably fading both of them this week. Moving over to the next game on the list, which is St Kilda and Sydney. So plenty of fantasy relevant players in this one here. Who are you keen on or not so keen on here?
I'm going to keep banging this drum. Going to do it again. You said rucks are hard to pick this round. I think there's one ruck that shouldn't be hard to pick. It's Brodie Grundy. He is the most in-form ruck in the competition.
Ruck pick.
I had a gold salary cap, the ruck pick, exactly. I had a gold card last round, and some people might have thought I was a little crazy because there were some really good matchups, but I knew that he would deliver for me. And honestly, he didn't even play as great as he has in other rounds, and he still got 132 fantasy points. He is on fire, and I know he's going up against Rowan Marshall, but St Kilda also give up a ton of fantasy points. Yeah, they score it with Rowan Marshall, but he's not a very defensive-minded ruck. He just plays his game, and that's what he does. If you look at the last 5, he's actually the second easiest matchup in the entire competition over the last 5, which is very shocking because you wouldn't think that from such a quality player. But I think Grundy, with the form that he's in other matchups that have been hard, he's still delivered, and now we're coming up with a really good matchup for him in this one. Get him in. Brodie Grundy should be one of the rucks that you pick in a very tough round to pick them.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but watching Grundy last 6 weeks, it brings tear the eye for one as well. The ruck pig being back, we thought he was gone, but he's come back and he's arguably playing career best footy. You could make the argument that this is his best 6-7 week stretch that he's had in his career, right? I want to get your thoughts with all the rucks and the good rucks this year. I think he's the lock out of all of them until further notice. I think that every week, regardless of matchup, regardless of a ruck opponent, I think he's got to be the one that we plug and play. I think that the other guy can be a mixture of Gawn and Marshall and Cherry and English. I don't know about you, but I think Grundy's probably got to be the guy we put in there at R1.
I'm going to agree. And the reason I'm going to agree is because it just feels like with Grundy that when he has the tough matchups, he just fights through them. He finds other ways to input and score. So we don't have this situation where when he's matched up against Wits, we go avoid. It's pretty crazy to think that with Max Gorn, one of the best players in the competition, when he comes up against someone like that, or Cherry, or any of our top tier rucks, we look elsewhere. And fair enough, because the numbers don't lie. And the reason that we say that is because the numbers will tell you, that's an avoid. But Grundy has been fighting through it. He's unbelievable. And even better, he's a Swan. So, I love to hear it. To pump him up.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, right? There might be a week, I haven't looked at the matchups moving forward, but there could be a week where like Gawn plays West Coast and Marshall plays Geelong, for example, right? That'll probably be a week where we go, okay, well, Grundy, we won't stake this week because these other two guys have got amazing matchups. But unless something like that happens, I think he's the guy that I think he's the guy that's in there. So yeah, he's in very, very good form. I'm going to go. Now, you know what? I'm going to go, because I've said at rucks I'm not so keen. I'm going to go the other ruck in this game I'm keen on as well. I've actually got, we'll go through our squads, but I've got both rucks in this game. I got Ryan Marshall as my other ruck this week. So tough matchup against Geelong, right? I understand that. But he doesn't rely on hit-outs. So he's like the extra midfielder around the ground. He's since, what was it?
Round... Geelong, or you mean the Swans? Sorry,
what did I say, Geelong? So
yeah, that's okay.
I meant Sydney.
It just rolled off the tongue so nicely. Yeah. I wasn't even sure if I heard it correctly.
So since round 6, when he had a 61, and he went through 88, 79, 61 in a 3-week stretch, and we thought, oh, here we go. That is Ryan Marshall just going to be a non-factor this year with the injury. Since then, he has only had the one game under a ton, which was an 88 in round 11. Here are some of the other scores around that: 127, 100, 129, 186, 111, 147, 126, 142, 156. That is incredible form. And we're talking about Grundy in great form. Marshall is also in form. They're the two informed rucks at the moment for fantasy-wise. And I know they're playing each other, and we typically both don't love playing rucks that play each other because we're like, well, they're going to steal from each other. But I think this is a game where Marshall gets his points around the ground. Grundy gets his points in the hit-outs and around the ground as well. So I think they're both sort of going to play off of each other, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring fantasy game, let alone for these two rucks. So I'm playing both of these two rucks this week. But I don't mind the smoke I did have, actually. We didn't touch on it in the Richmond game I was thinking about. I don't mind Tobin and Curvis. And if Todd Goldstein is rested this week and they play Vigo Vicentini, that may change my mind, and I may go Nank this week over a Marshall this week and play Grundy and Nankervis. So just something I'm looking for in team selection, just because that is a good matchup, and we know Nank on his day can put up a good score. So something will be keeping a close eye on. Moving to the final game of the round, Port Adelaide and West Coast, and I dare say I'm probably going to say a couple players we're keen on here from Port Adelaide. Who are you keen on here?
Yeah, I love the pick before as pot of the round from Corey, Mitch Georgiades, by the way. Although I don't have him in the squad, I think there's a real chance where he comes out firing and people are going to regret not starting him. But I am going to talk about another forward that plays on the same team. I'm going to talk about Jason Horne-Francis. Now, his form's been a little funky, It hasn't been very good, in all honesty. It's past couple games, 102, 44, 84, 127, 12, very up and down. You spoke about the roller coaster before.
That 127, he got his shoulder injury late in that Melbourne game. He got subbed out, and then he just struggled since then. But looked a bit better last week.
He did look better last week, and I think in a matchup where he should look even better, I'm just expecting him to build on what he's done. Even if he does go forward, he's not going to get Jinby. He's not going to get one of their key defenders on him. So I think there's a chance that he gets dangerous in front of goals, and he's going to play through the midfield, and it's going to be a get-right game for him. He has had a really rough patch. He needs this now more than ever to just continue his season and to get back on track. So maybe when other people are not looking at Jason, because there's a lot of great forward matchups this week, I think it's time to go. Jason Horne-Francis, get him in. Got some good upside, but definitely scared of the flaws we have seen over the past couple of rounds, for sure.
Yeah, I've got him in as well, and I think and I think this is a bit of a flow-on effect with Port's team, is that people go, I'm going to say, Savradicali being injured, people are going to go, how has that got anything to do with Jason Horne-Francis? I'll tell you why it's got to do with Jason Horne-Francis, right? Because he's out. Port don't have many replacements. I think Miles Bergman, that means he goes more into defence, which means that there's a midfield spot opened up. That's where Jason Horne-Francis comes in. I think he gets that bump. We saw him have more midfield time after quarter time last week when the injuries occurred. And seeing Port's injury list, they don't really have many tall defenders sort of coming back or that will come back into the side. I believe Ryan Burton is still TBC on their injury report. I don't know exactly if he's going to be back. They're saying maybe they bring in like a Logan Evans or Dylan Williams to play as like a hybrid option, but we've seen, and then they said maybe Jeremy Finlayson may plays in defence. But yeah, so it seems like Ryan Burton's not going to be back, which means that they're going to, I can't see a world where Bergman isn't back, which is disappointing for not only people that were thinking about Miles Bergman as a bit of a pod here in a West Coast matchup in defence. I just think with the injuries there, he's just going to have to play in defence. So which is a shame, because I think Bergman could have been a solid option as well. Player that I'm keen on here. I'm not going to go Connor Rozee. He's in my squad, right? Got salary cap on him. Love him this week. I think he's got to be in our squads. I'm going to go the other Port midfielder here that has been a bit forgotten in game day squad, I reckon, this year. We haven't talked about him a huge amount, which I know Cal will probably be sitting at home going, why does Tom Bars not talk about this guy? He is an absolute gun, and he is a gun. That's Zach Butters. Zach Butters, great matchup this week against West Coast. Has been prone to a tag and has got a potential Brady Hoff run going his way, but we've seen Brady Hoff hasn't really kept guys like really, really quiet. Like he hasn't been like a Windhager or a Mullen or a Bedford. Like he won't keep them to 50 game day squad points or 60 points, right? I think he's just more of a run with guy, a bit like a Josh Dunkley, like just sort of runs with them for a little bit, but not a real hard tag. But his last is since he scored a 56 in round 10, that was with the Mullen tag. Since then, he's gone 101, 126, 113, 118, 94. And then last week had a second highest score for the season with a 139. Sort of seems to start to be hitting some good form. Zach Butters kicked it a lot more as well, which is obviously great for fans in game day squad. We get double the points if they kick the ball, which is great. So I like him this week in a good matchup. Adelaide Oval to finish the round. I like having the triple of Horne-Francis, Butters, and Horne-Francis. Yeah, sorry, said the same player twice. Rozee, Butters, Horne-Francis in your game day squad. So there you go. I do like that. And that's the games. That'll be where we wrap up those. So we'll go through our lock and fade of the week. Corey Blackledge just saying here as well, I can't fit in Jordan Clark this week, have 7 defender options. Yeah, there's a lot of good defender options this week again. So I think that if you put Clark in a squad, I think that's a good play, but he's probably not in the top 6 this week. I've considered Sweet as well, but worried he doesn't score enough. I don't mind Jordan Sweet as an option, but I think you've probably hit it there, Corey. I don't think he's got the ceiling. I still think guys like Marshall in a tough matchup, even Darcy Cameron to an extent, I still think they've got the ability to probably score the same as Jordan Sweet in a tough matchup. So I just think he just didn't have that ceiling, unfortunately, there. And Mike says he reckons that Port might bring in Rahm. So is he a defender? I believe he's defender, and I reckon he's the mid-season pickup, if I'm not mistaken. So he may get a go here. So let me just have a look here. So Rahm is a defender. Yep. And I believe he's is he like 200 centimeters or something? I'm just going to have a quick look at this because I'm actually keen to see this because if he's in, then maybe that helps Miles Bergman. Because if Miles Bergman's in the midfield on the weekend, I actually think he's another
good pick for sure.
Another good pick. So Harrison Rahm, he is 202 centimeter key defender. So you'd probably say he is someone that is likely to come in and make his debut. So that's a good point. If he comes in and then they bring maybe a Logan Evans in, that my confidence in Miles Bergman playing midfield goes up. And arguably that means that my confidence in Horne-Francis playing a big midfield role probably goes down. So I was already considering a Georgiades, but if those guys come in, I might consider putting a Georgiades in over a Horne-Francis on my bench. So that's something to be watching for sure. But yes, lock and fade of the week. We'll start with fade of the week, then we'll go lock of the week, and then we'll go into our squad. So who's your fade of the week in round 18?
Yeah, let's go fade of the week. I guess it has to be Jordan Dawson. You can't name a player that is that high in the average. Like, we're
Unbelievable.
talking about the sixth highest average over the entire season, 128 fantasy points.
And you've
In
got an
terms
all
of midfielders,
you've got an all-star Jordan Dawson as well.
I do have an all-star Jordan Dawson. So please know this. I don't take this very well. Like, this hurts me.
You don't take pleasure in this, yeah.
No, yeah. I don't want to be fading Jordan Dawson, but for now, I will be. I spoke about my reasons before, but yeah, I'm just going to wait for a little bit more form with him to get him back in the squad, and to, or at least put salary cap on him. So if I am starting him, it's probably more of a bronze situation or a silver in GameDay Squad.
Yep. Yep. I don't like it, but there you go.
I'm sorry, Russ.
Who am I going to go with here? It's a tricky one because there's not I don't really know if there's this week there's like a standout, like, yep, they've got an awful matchup, real hard tag coming their way. I'm gonna go fade of the week. I'll just say Darcy Cameron, just because the Jad Witts matchup. Touched on it before. Toughest matchup for Rucks. But in saying that, I feel like Darcy Cameron's the sort of player, though, that can still score really well. And I wouldn't be shocked if he actually had a really big score against Witts. But just in games where we obviously target matchups, and this isn't a matchup I want to be targeting for Darcy Cameron. So I'm going to be fading him this week. Lock of the week.
I'm going to go with someone I didn't get to talk about, which I enjoy, because now I can give him a bit of flowers. But I'm going to go a big bounce back performance for Nick Martin. And I'm loading up with salary cap. I think Nick Martin is going to play fantastic. You spoke about Richmond. I know you took him in that game as your start of the round. I'm not too concerned with the form. I think he's just going to dominate. He had 199, was it, fantasy points, he said last time against Richmond. He's going to get back to playing his best footy. I guess a big reason why we've seen a little regression with his fantasy points is that his kicks and marks have been down in terms of the average from weeks prior. So I feel like both of those are going to be lifted back up, because who's going to be able to run with him? He's going to run all day and he's going to demand the footy. The footy he shall get, at least hopefully. So get him in, put the salary cap on, and get really excited for a Nick Martin performance.
Yep, agreed. Yep, he is. Yep, I'm very keen on him. I'm just having a look actually, because I believe he had a few CBAs last week. So he had 7 against Freo before the bye, and obviously Merritt didn't have many, with Parrish and Caldwell taking up a big chunk. And then last week we saw obviously Merritt go back right up to sort of where we know Merritt can play in the midfield. So 26 CBAs last week, and for the game they had 32 CBAs. So 26 to 32 obviously is great. Setterfield 24, Durham had 20, Caldwell 14, Nick Martin had 12. So a bit of an increase there. And with Caldwell out as well, you think maybe he gets even more of an uptick. So if he's playing more of that midfield role, that could be nasty this week. So yep,
especially
I agree.
Against Richmond.
Yep, exactly. And I'm actually going to go, funny enough, your lock of the week was the guy that you talked about in that game. I'm going to go lock of the week about the guy that you talked about in this game, and that is Zach Merritt. I just mentioned before, his midfield role was back. He was the clear number 1 midfielder for Essendon on the weekend. Parrish is still not going to be back. Caldwell's now injured. Merritt's got to be in there as the number 1 banana in there. I think he's going to go absolutely massive again against Richmond. Obviously, had a massive score against them already with, what was it? What did I say it was? 166 against them last time. I've got a lot of salary on him. 170 scored against Richmond. You had salary on Martin. I've got him on Merritt as well. And I think we both probably got salary on both these guys this week. So Zach Merritt for me is someone that I can't go without in my game day squad in round
Love it, mate.
18. Now, let's get our squads on the screen as we wrap up the show. So here is Tom's squad for round 18. So take it away.
Let me fix a mistake that I have made. Although I love big 2 meter Peter, that is meant to be Brian Myers upon reflection. I do think 2 meter Peter's got a good matchup this week, and he could be good, but not better than Brian Myers. My gut is telling me that you probably should be.
Actually, You know what? Looking at it now, Richmond as a matchup, Peter Wright. It's not a bad matchup. It's a good matchup. If you want to go for a pod, Peter Wright is the guy. I remember you played Peter Wright actually last time. I reckon they played Richmond as a pod as well.
Yeah. I do love myself 2 meter. I think more than most other coaches give him the nod in my squad, and maybe to my detriment at times. But yeah, Miles will be in. But you can see from the back there, 2 bits of salary cap, and that's on Wangani Millera and Martin. I think they're going to play great. Spoke about the Giants combo. Jordan Clark, I've got in. I'm expecting a bounce back, but am a little more hesitant, hence why I've got a bronze. Dane Zorko, just because it's Zorko. And honestly, I didn't love the matchup. I didn't love getting him in, but if I just don't play him, I'll regret it. So got to get him in the defense. And then the last one there is McKercher, who will be making his debut for my squad this week. I think, the ball could be down there a little bit. There could be a lot of kick-ins. I spoke about John Noble and how he might be kicking in the ball a lot last week because he was versing the Demons. And guess who has the Demons this week? Is North. And, John Noble actually played pretty good, and a bunch of that did come from the kick-in. So I'm going to keep trusting my gut here. Daniels will also get a bit of that, but McCurch has sort of become that lead defender, especially off the halfback. So
you're on
that's
the
my defense.
Train. I've said it actually for about 3 weeks on the show.
Yeah.
Said Colby's a good option, get him in, and you're on board. So I love it.
I'm on board. I finally listened, Bales. I finally listened to you. But I've got Dacos, Rosie, and Goulden. So bit of salary cap there. Merritt, Butters, and McCluggage as well. He's probably one of the big pods that I have for the round, but he's in really good form.
He's the one I referenced when I said at the start that if people remember on the Brisbane Carlton. I remember seeing him in your squad when you sent it through, and I thought the McCluggage part, I do like it, and he's someone that I'm trying to fit in. I just can't fit him in at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, and probably to the detriment of a player like Tom Green, maybe someone that you mentioned before. So I'm just giving him the nod for now. But the ruck, Grundy, gone, and I've gone Big Smitter. He looks to be back. His sickness has miraculously recovered. He's looking good back on the track. So thank you, Smith. But Jackson, Pickett, Kennedy, McRae, Jason, and then Myers. So definitely probably one to flag would be Jason. And we'll be watching that situation with you, Bales, in terms of what they're doing there in the defence. Will he get a little bit more time in the midfield because Bergman needs to drop? We'll see. But that's the squad for the Zeus Cannons. And Bales, it's now time to see yours in its complete form.
Yep, exactly. I was going to say something. I can't. That's what I was going to ask you. No, who did you replace Bailey Smith with on the weekend? Because obviously we heard on the Saturday morning, and it got confirmed later. Who'd you end up replacing with? Because I ended up just doing a straight swap for Sean Manor. So I just put Sean Manor into my classic side, and I just put, I think, Dylan Moore or someone like that in another squad, just with who was part of it. So who'd you replace Baz with?
Yeah, I replaced him with who ended up becoming my top scoring forward. So pretty good replacement.
Jezza?
No, I had Jezza already in. It was McRae. I didn't have McRae in.
Oh, okay, right.
I was a little concerned with how much midfield time he's getting. He's coming back off the injury. He didn't look as great. And I thought he was my 8th man. I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave him out this week because I was trusting the trio in Geelong of Myers, Cameron, and Smith.
Yeah.
So ended up replacing him with the guy that I had an 8th, and it was one of the best decisions I made for the round. So thanks, Jack McRae.
Yep, there you go. Corey Blackledge has just put in here, Durden and Chincotta in for Front Sevens and Akers, Big O in for Sam Day. So, yes, the squad's just announced for the Thursday night game, obviously right at the end of the show, obviously because we're an hour earlier. Normally, we get to go through these whatever
so
there.
So yeah,
they're the change. So Chincotta, probably Lockie Neal or McCluggage, but he went to Butters, but didn't really tag him, I don't think. So I don't really know if there's an obvious tag there, but for anyone that's looking at maybe a Sam Doherty as a pod, he's named at half back again. But then you've got like Matt Carroll's named on the wing. So that worries me slightly there. Zach Williams on a wing as well. There is a chance that Doherty is on the wing actually tomorrow night looking at the team there, because I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they did. So, something to look for there. But my squad for round 18 is on the screen now. So Tom went through his contender side. This is my classic side there. So lot of bronze in defence. So Zorko, Ash, Whitfield, Sheasel. Max Holmes is Colby McKercher. He's the one change I made as well. Colby's there. I just don't love the Giants matchup for Holmesy this week. And he may get the Bedford tag if they decide to run it with him instead of Baz. So I've gone for McKercher instead with the better matchup. Nasai is the one I wanted to chat about, though, quickly, because I normally have the salary on him most weeks. I don't have salary on him this week. And the reason being is because I think it's a guarantee, Tom, that one of your Sydney boys, Braden Campbell, is going to do a job on Nasai. Whether he can stop him is another thing, right? We saw Sam Mitchell post-game came out and said they tried 4 different players on Nasai last week and they couldn't stop him, and he had a career-high 43 touches, right? I just think Sydney is a tough matchup. And I just think that this isn't the week I'm going to put salary on Nasai. But if he can score well, I'll be happy because I love watching him play. He's one of the best players to watch. Really keen for him. And I've got the Giants duo, as you said as well, Ash and Whitfield back there, and Sheezer with the good matchup there in salary on top of Nick Martin, which obviously we mentioned before as well. Midfield, Rosie, Dawson, Dacos, and Merritt. I got the Bont in there as well, along with Butters. So obviously got the salary on Rosie, Merritt, and Dacos with their great matchups. Dawson and Bont probably the two that up against each other. I'm going to be keeping a bit of a close eye on any pre-game talk about is maybe like a Matt Kennedy going to go on Dawson? Is a Peatling or someone going to go to a Bont? Or are they good? I'm actually hoping, Tom, that I heard on 5AA on the way home from the Crows game last week. That's a listener or someone called in and asked about what are they going to do with Dawson and Bont next week. I hope they go head-to-head with one another. Hope the captains, they're same size, go on each other. That would be that'd be an insane battle in the midfield. So I'm hoping that's the case because I think if that's the case, I think both can score quite well. So that's why they're there. I've got Marshall and Grundy up against each other as well in the rucks. And then in the forward line. So this is the first time actually I've got no salary on either rucks as well, opting for just the bronzes there. Then you got Baz with the salary, got him with the salary every single week, but he could cop some attention from Giants this week. Kennedy, McRae, Jackson, Myers, got Cozzy Pickett in there as well, along with Jason and Francis, but I'll be keeping an eye on if what they're doing with the team, and if they do, maybe Georgiades comes in as a bit of a pod on the bench for him. So that is how...
Just interesting to know. Is no Sinclair
no,
either
not for me. Not against Sydney, because if you look at St Kilda's team, I think that Braden Campbell will go to Nasai, or they're going to try it anyway. Maybe they try it with James Jordan, does that instead, which if Jordan's doing the role in Nasai, it's not going to be great for Nasai, right? But it's going to be good for guys like an Errol Goulden, an Isaac Heaney. Agreed. And guys like Warner and that, they'll get that bump in CBAs because Jordan's been playing a lot of CBAs. So that's probably actually the one I didn't touch on. I don't have Errol in my squad.
I was just about to bring this up. I'm so glad you said this.
I've had him for a couple of weeks in the squad.
What are you doing?
I'm quite scared.
Hated on my boy.
I'm scared that he cops the Windhager tag this week. I think he will get it, unfortunately. So Windhager, the last 2 games, had 0 CBAs and then he had 8 last week. A little bit of an increase, but he's been spending some time on the wing. I'm just a bit nervous that he'll be on a wing and he'll go with Errol because we've seen Sydney's form has really turned around since Errol's come back into the side. Obviously, Papley as well, but unfortunately, Papley's out, which sucks for him. He just hasn't been able to get a good run at this year. But that's my worry is Goulden gets tag, and I just don't want to play. Unless I hear pre-game that Ross Lyon says, yep, we're going to be taking Isaac Heaney, then I might be a bit more confident in it. But for the time being, I think I'm just going to steer clear just because I don't love playing guys that are getting tagged. Unless your name's Asai Wanganeen Miller, then I'll keep you in regardless. So, but yeah, that is how the squad is shaping up for round 18. Obviously, a couple of changes may happen, but we'll see with teams. But Tom, that is it from us. Obviously, you've got to head over to the GameDay Squad State of Origin Rugby League show. So looking forward to that. Quick prediction from you for tonight's State of Origin game. What do you reckon it'll be?
You know what's going to happen, mate. Blues going to be too good. Calm the Blues. Let's go. And we're going to win 28-12. That's my prediction.
What, 38-12?
28-12.
Oh, sorry, 28. Sorry, but Mike must have. Well, you'd probably like 38-12 if that happens. So
I'd love that. Yeah, great. Even better.
As you can see, I'm wearing a bit of the maroon sort of themed. It's more of like a red maroon type one, but still same thing. Hopefully Queensland get the job done. But then again, I'm more of a neutral fan. Like just I want a good game. I expect New South Wales to win, but if Queensland get it done, I reckon it's going to be 20-18 I'm going to say that. I'm not going to say who's going to win. I'm going to say it's going to be 20-18. I think it's going to be a close game, just because it's the decider. But it is in Sydney, so it will be a advantage to New South Wales there. So we'll see how that goes. But Tom, that is it from us. Where can the people find you across the socials?
Yeah, you want to find me on X, it's at TommyGDS. Otherwise, we're across any of the other GameDay Squad social official accounts. I'm more than happy to help out. If you haven't started your journey, code BAILSDT, you get a little spicy pack on top, little reward. But yeah, it's never too late. If your season's done in other formats, it's time to come over to GameDay Squad and see what we're all about, because it's a bunch of fun. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, especially if you're sitting down here right now listening to this. I can promise you, yeah, you'll have a good time. So, yeah, get us on any of the socials. More than happy to help. And the best of luck for the round that's coming up. There's some big decisions to make. Hopefully, you make all the right ones.
Yeah, agreed. You can find me at BAILSDT across the socials and us at AFL Fantasy Fans on X as well. And yes, as you said, use the code BAILSDT. Sign up. If you haven't signed up at GameDay Squad yet, it's not all about the season. It's actually probably more about the weekly prizes, because the weekly prizes every week are absolutely fantastic, particularly in Contender. If you've just started your GameDay Squad journey and you finish in the top 25, you get at least a 9-player common pack and then a 3-player common pack. But if you get lucky enough to finish top 10, top 5, even the top few, you get 9-player unique packs, which are like $50 on the market, or you get a 9-player rare pack, which I think are $40 or $30 on the market, or something like that. So they're all like you get packs from there. And then once you play Contender for the last 6-7 weeks, you can then build your club up for next year and then really get going from the start and potentially be in the running for prize cards. So, and they've also got the Premier League will obviously be joining with GameDay Squad. So we'll have that fantasy platform, that competition on GameDay Squad. Obviously, we'll have the cricket in the summer as well.
Bails.
Yep. Oh, I can't wait. We'll have the cricket in the summer. We've obviously got the NBL will be back as well. Like this, the AFLW, obviously that's only 5 weeks away. So if you haven't done AFL on GameDay Squad, AFLW starts in 5 weeks' time. So make sure you guys get involved. Use the code BAILSDT at sign up. You get yourself 3 of the 9-player compacts, valued at $21. And as Tom always says, most importantly, GameDay Squad is
free to play, free to enter.
Yes, there you go, mate. Beautiful. And we'll finish off on that note. But if you enjoyed the stream, make sure you do smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'll be back tomorrow for another watch along, as we always are, along with captains there, and obviously pre-lockout chat as we always do. So looking forward to that. If you want to join the Patreon, links in the description below, and we'll catch you guys same time, probably an hour later, probably same place next week for another GameDay Squad preview. So thanks everyone, and good luck this week. Enjoy the footy. See ya.